Namaskaram to all of you. Shri Kumar, members of the Mathrubhumi family, members of the family of the late Shri Veerendra Kumar ji, leaders of various political parties, citizens of Kozhikode district and Kozhikode city, other friends and admirers of the late Shri Veerendra Kumar, friends, colleagues. I'm grateful to my good friend Shri Kumar for inviting me to deliver a commemorative address to remember his late father, Shri MP Veerendra Kumar. I'm sorry I cannot speak in Malayalam, but the subject is such that while the language will be English, the numbers that I use will have known language, and in every language, the numbers can be easily understood. I have worked with Shri Veerendra Kumar between 1996 and 1998. He was my esteemed colleague in the Finance Ministry. I myself was new to the Ministry of Finance. I had not worked before in the Ministry of Finance. And both of us were chosen to lead the Ministry of Finance by the United Front government formed by Shri Devagowda. It was a unique political experiment in India, where the two largest political parties could not form a government, and smaller parties, no party had more than 50 members. Smaller parties came together and formed a government which ran for 2 years and could have easily run for the remaining 3 years, except for the misguided ambition of one man of one party. I won't go into all that history, but that government gave me an opportunity to work with Shri Veerendra Kumar. Of course, his reputation had preceded him. He was a lifelong socialist, completely devoted to the late Shri Jayaprakash Narayan ji. He was a scholar, an author, and a lifelong rebel and a protester. I think if you look at his life, the number of days he protested against injustice will be more than the number of days he lived as an author or a writer or an MP. It was in his blood to rebel against injustice and fight for justice. One could make out that rebellious streak in a brief conversation. I've had many conversations with him, and I've been enriched by his knowledge, his wisdom, and his guidance. the crowning glory of his life was he was perhaps the shortest tenure of minister in a state government. He assumed office, took his first administrative decision that no more cutting of trees in forests. And when the then government, completely misguided, asked him to overturn his decision, he promptly resigned. Now look back, and it is surprising that an order not to cut trees in a forest could have provoked such opposition. It is a matter of great surprise that a chief minister and his cabinet should have asked him to overturn his decision. It is, of course, no surprise to who knew Mr. Veerendra Kumar that he will resign. He would never accept injustice, and what he thought was just and right, he would never overturn that decision, and he promptly resigned. I don't know of anyone who will resign if his chief minister or prime minister will ask him to overturn his decision, and that too within 48 hours of assuming office. People of Kerala remember him for that brave decision. That brave decision is now the law of the land. What was a momentous decision when Sri Veerendra Kumar was minister is now the law of the land. No trees can be cut in any forest. In fact, a number of illegal felling of trees takes place, but it's all illegal. And I don't know of any forest minister who will accept the portfolio and enforce that decision. But remember that when Sri Veerendra Kumar took that decision, it was not only a historic decision, it was an unprecedented decision. And that is the law of the land, the legacy of Sri Veerendra Kumar. In the United Front government, I remember, he was also the Minister for Labour. And in 1997, he was elected as the chairman of the International Conference on Labour organized by the ILO at Bangkok. Some years later, in 2004, the World Water Conference was held at Pachimada. That is again due to the initiative of Sri Veerendra Kumar. Labour and water were his other interests, apart from literature and philosophy. And such a versatile man also nursed Mathrubhumi. When he took over at a young age, Mathrubhumi had only 2 editions. But during the 40 years of his stewardship, Mathrubhumi has blossomed into 15 editions, 11 periodicals, a TV channel, an FM radio, and multiple social media platforms. He was also an institution builder. While he protested against injustice, he was also building a great institution which has stood at the head of the progressive movement in Kerala. Mathrubhumi has always been associated with progressive ideas, a progressive movement, and a fight for the causes of the people. I was very pleasantly surprised that during the period when Mathrubhumi modernized and introduced a number of latest technologies, it had to survive as a newspaper, It has to survive as a media house. There was no way in which it could not have modernized. It modernized, introduced technologies, and I was pleasantly surprised and I was deeply touched by the fact that during that period of modernization and technological change, not one worker, not one employee of Mathrubhumi was retrenched. Workers became redundant, employees became redundant. Not one was retrenched. They were reskilled and employed in other jobs. That shows Sri Veerendra Kumar's passionate commitment to the welfare of labor and welfare of employees. And I think the entire Mathrubhumi family salutes him for his sagacity and wisdom. Since 1992, another chapter in his life opened. He became an author. And he was not just an author of fiction. He wrote non-fiction. He published more than 18 titles. And he was perhaps the first winner of the award of the Kendriya Central Sahitya Academy and the Kerala Sahitya Academy. That is a unique distinction which Sri Veerendra Kumar earned, and he won, of course, many, many awards. Named the award, and it was given to Sri Veerendra Kumar's literary contributions, the Murti Devi Award, the Shivram Karand Award, and the Vayalar Award. When the Babri Masjid was demolished, he wrote a unique piece of literature. The pain which Lord Rama would have felt when the Babri Masjid was demolished. Now that is a novel perspective. There were many, many people who wrote about the pain of the Muslim community, but it was a novel perspective to look at the pain of Lord Rama and his Ramante Dukkam. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Ramante Dukkam was a very, very unique contribution to the times when the Babri Masjid was demolished. We are gathered here to remember Sri Veerendra Kumar, his life and his work, and I join all of you in saluting the memory of Sri Veerendra Kumar. I've been asked to speak on a subject which I did not choose it, Mr. Sri M. Kumar chose it. Inclusive growth, myth and reality. Now, why is inclusive growth regarded as a myth by some people? Why is it regarded as a reality by some people? Obviously, both can't be correct. It can't be at the same time a myth and at the same time a reality. It's mutually contradictory. You have to, on the basis of data, come to the conclusion, is inclusive growth in India today a reality or a myth? It's possible that you can argue whether inclusive growth is a possibility at all. Is it possible in a capital-dominated, competitive world? Can there be inclusive growth? That is a legitimate question. Can it be an inclusive growth? Can you have inclusive growth? Will definition, by definition, will growth create inequality? That's a very different question. The question, as I understand it, is, In India, do we have inclusive growth? Those who celebrate inclusive growth, are they celebrating a reality or a myth? I think answers to this question can be found in numbers. I think it's important to understand numbers. Numbers cannot lie. Lies can be converted to numbers, but numbers cannot lie. As long as the numbers are proof, the numbers are facts, the numbers will not lie. Now, what are the numbers? There is no doubt that India has grown. In fact, in the last 30 years, the average growth has been much better than in the first 45 years. We have grown at 6%. In some years, we have grown at 7% a year. And in 3 or 4 years, we even grew at 9% a year. So growth is possible. We have demonstrated that it's possible to grow. But growth for whom? Who has benefited by this growth? That is the question. If this growth had percolated to all the people of India in different degrees, it cannot be equal fraction of growth for every individual. Obviously, that's not possible. But if growth had percolated to all sections of the people, we can broadly claim that India is growing inclusively. India is taking along everybody. Nobody is left behind in India. That's a possible conclusion. The question that we have to ask ourselves today is, has India's growth taken every section of the people together? Let's look at some numbers. To make it simple, I divide India into two. There are about 140 crore people in this country. The exact number this year is about 142 crore. Let's divide India into the top half and the bottom half. Now, in the top half, there will be 71 crore people. And in the bottom half, there are another 71 crore people. The bottom half has only 3% of the nation's wealth. The top half enjoys 97% of India's wealth. That's absolutely clear that India is hopelessly divided. One half of the people hold only 3% of the nation's wealth. Another half of the people hold or own 97% of the nation's wealth. There can be no country which is so hopelessly divided into the bottom half and the top half. Now leave wealth alone. Let's look up income. What people earn. If you take the gross national income and look at what the top half earns and what the bottom half earns, the bottom half has only 13% of the national income. The top half has 87% of the national income. So of the national income, let's assume the national income is 100 rupees. And let's assume that there are 100 people in the country. It should be roughly, in an equal society, it should be roughly 1 rupee per person. In a real society, there cannot be mathematical equality, but I can understand if the top half enjoys, say, 60% of the income, and the bottom half enjoys 40% of the income. But in India today, the bottom half, 50 people have only 13 rupees out of every 100, and the other 50 people have 87% of the rupees 100. It gets even more interesting if you break down. I said the top half has 87% of India's income. Of that, the top 1% enjoy 40% belongs to 1%. 1% of India's population is 1.4 crore. 1.4 crore people enjoy 40% of the entire national income. If you take 0.1%, that is 14 lakh people enjoy 29% of the national income. If you take 1/10 of that, 0.01%, that is 1,40,000 people enjoy 22% of India's income. Just 1,40,000 people enjoy 22% of national income. And it gets even more interesting. 1/10 of that, 0.001%, that is 14,000 people. Just 14,000 people. You can count them, you can identify them. 14,000 people enjoy 16% of the national income. Now I can break it down further, it becomes even more startling. If you take 1% of 14,000, or 1/10 of 14,000, 1,400 people, and then 140 people, and then 14 people will enjoy a completely disproportionate share of India's income. That is why Thomas Piketty, who heads the World Inequality Lab, says, of all the countries in the world, India is the most unequal country. India is the most unequal country. When my party leader says that this country's wealth belongs to 22 people, he's not far wrong. Actually, he should say this country's wealth belongs to 14 people. 14,000 people enjoy 16% of the national income, whereas 71 crore people enjoy 13% of the national income. The 14,000 people are richer than 71 crore people. This conclusively established we are a very, very unequal society. Every society has inequality. But these numbers prove that we are more unequal than can be justified by any kind of economic policy. Now we can look at some other data, but I don't think any more data is necessary. I just want to make a few broader observations. Firstly, if you look at social inequality on the one side and economic inequality on the other, to any analyst, the conclusion will not be surprising. Economic inequality is a mirror image of social inequality. Now, who are the people in the top half? Who are the people in the bottom half? You can divide it by decentiles. Percentiles is 1% each. You can divide it by decentiles, 10%. The other backward classes are somewhere near the average. The scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe are below the average. So who are above the average? Above the average are the so-called upper castes. I don't recognize caste. I reject caste. Therefore, when I use the word caste, I'm not using it with any value sense. I'm not praising or criticizing any caste. I'm only using words which are in common use. In common language, we identify other backward castes, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and the others are called upper castes. So if you look at the social equality and the economic inequality, you will find that the OBCs are somewhere near the average. The SC and ST are below the average. In fact, our concept of poverty itself is extremely outdated. For example, the average that we take, the numbers that we take to measure poverty, according to the UNDP, is per capita per month income of 1,286 rupees in an urban area and 1,089 rupees in rural areas. It's appallingly low number, but let us accept those numbers. If you accept those numbers, the median number, that is which divides the top half and the bottom half, the median is 3,094 for rural areas and 4,962 rupees in urban areas for household consumption. Now, if you look at the household consumption at the median, the OBCs are somewhere around the median. They consume for a household 3,094 rupees in rural areas and 4,962 rupees in urban areas. The SCs and STs are below. If you look at that division, it does not require great mathematical skill to extrapolate and find out who the bottom 20% are. If the bottom 50% will largely consist of OBC, SC, and ST, it does not require great skill or great knowledge to deduce who will be the bottom 20%. The bottom 20% are the people who I call are the forgotten people of India. The people who do so-called unclean jobs. The people who sleep on streets, are under bridges. The people who have no regular work, who have to look for casual labor work every day. The people who have no security of work at all. The people who have no salary, no bonus, no pension, no gratuity, no provident fund. The people who have lived, they have to work that day and they have to eat a meal. Those are the bottom 20 people, 20%. That bottom owns little, owns practically nothing, earns little, and struggles for existence. And that bottom 20% is entirely dependent upon state support or charity. The number 20% should not mislead you. The number 20% in India means 28 crore people, larger than the population of many countries of the world. If the bottom 20% of India, 28 crore people, constitute a separate country, they will be the seventh or eighth largest country in the world. That section has been completely neglected by all this growth. This growth is not yet pivoted to the poor. This is a self-criticism. This is a self-criticism of every political party, including my own party, the Congress Party. This is a criticism of every government, including a government where I have been a member. The self-criticism must open a new road, a new path for India. But we have to begin with self-criticism. If we accept that everything is hunky-dory, every policy is correct, every program is correct, and eventually it'll percolate down to the last person, I think we are hopelessly wrong. It will take 100 years or more to percolate down to the last person. We have to reset our economic policies. We have to completely reorient our policies so that we look at the poor of this country. We look at the bottom 50% and especially the bottom 20%. We look at those who are the margins of society, who simply exist because they are born in this country. They can't be wished away. They can't vanish into thin air, nor can they throw themselves into a funeral pyre. They have to live in this country. But that living is less than what a man deserves to live or a woman deserves to live. So I have pleaded that the time has come to a reset of economic policy. The fundamental principles of liberalization and an open economy are relevant and are valid because we opened up India's economy in 1991 because of liberalization, encouraging the private sector, encouraging new entrepreneurs, encouraging young people to start new ventures, competition, international trade, and liberal lending to entrepreneurs, we have come this far. While those elements will remain intact and are valid and relevant, and let me make it clear, I strongly support liberalization, competition, encouraging private sector, encouraging new entrepreneurs, exports, and international trade. But at the same time, when we get the benefits of that kind of an open economy, the state, the government must reorient its programs and policies towards the poor. At the moment, I think the policies and programs are oriented towards the rich, the top 50%, and not the bottom 50%. We must pivot towards the poor and look at the poor, look at the oppressed, look at the weak, look at those left behind, and see that the benefits go to them. For example, I can give you a couple of examples. We have a scheme where we must move away from fossil fuels to clean gas or clean fuels for cooking. The Congress government started the distribution of LPG. LPG is a great benefit in urban areas, especially for middle-class families. The present government started a scheme where they distribute stoves to individuals, especially the poor. They claim to have distributed 10 crore stoves under the Ujjwala scheme. I compliment them for that. But is the stuff working? Is the stuff being used? By distributing stoves, you don't distribute gas. By distributing stoves, you don't make the family use clean gas. The numbers show that a family can use an LPG cylinder for between 30 to 45 days. So an average family requires between 8 to 12 cylinders per year. But the average consumption for the whole of India for these 10 crore Ujjwala families is 3.7 cylinders a year. So 3.7 cylinders will possibly take the family through 4 to 6 months. So we ask ourselves, what does the family do for the remaining 6 months? Obviously, they burn old fuels, coal, firewood, kerosene, all fuels which add to pollution. So while the scheme on paper is an equitable, equal, fair scheme, in practice, what happens is only 3.7 cylinders per year is used by the average family. The average is completely misleading. It's as misleading as a man who said the average depth of the river is 5 feet, but I am 6 foot, so I can cross the river even though I do not know to swim. He was no doubt 6 feet, but the average 5 feet does not mean at the deepest point it is 5 feet. At the shore it is 6 inches. At the deepest point it will be 10 or 12 feet. So if a man does not know swimming, if he's 6 foot tall and he believes that the average is 5 and he crosses the river, he will drown. So the average 3.7 is made by the rich consuming more than 12 cylinders, the poor consuming 1 or 2 cylinders, and the average is 3.7. So the entire scheme, the Ujjwala scheme, has benefited the middle class, has been so-called benefit to the poorer class, but it's not a scheme pivoted to the poor. A scheme pivoted to the poor will ensure not only that 10 crore stoves are distributed, that it will ensure that they get 8 to 12 cylinders a year, and they get it and use it. At 1,100 rupees a cylinder, obviously nobody can afford to spend 1,100 rupees at a time to buy a cylinder. This is a good example of how our policies are not pivoted to the poor. There are many such examples which can be given, but I won't multiply the examples. All that I will point out is that unless we understand the economic hierarchy and the social hierarchy, the one mirrors the other, and we reorient our policies towards the bottom half, especially the scheduled caste, the scheduled tribe, and other depressed sections, it will not be possible to call us an egalitarian society. Ultimately, I think inclusive growth is about building an egalitarian society. Is this society equal or reasonably equal, fair and just? I'm afraid it is not. Not that it can never be. You can build an egalitarian society. In fact, purely capitalist countries, rich countries have built egalitarian societies. Egalitarian societies can be built by making healthcare universal and free, education universal and free. Egalitarian societies can be built. Unfortunately, our concept of egalitarian society does not include universal free healthcare, universal free education. In most Western countries, for example, European countries, education is free from kindergarten to postgraduate. Healthcare is free from the minor ailment to major surgery. So we can build an egalitarian society by making our policies oriented towards the poor. For example, the King of Sweden, if he is admitted to a hospital or his daughter is admitted to a hospital to deliver a baby, she gets the same room as any other citizen in Sweden will get. That kind of extreme equality is not that I'm advocating at the moment. I'm saying there must be a fair and just society, and that can only be built by equalizing the privileges and the rights and the income as far as possible. We are a growing society, but this growth is not inclusive. This growth is in fact widening the differences, widening the inequalities between the poor. The rich, the top 50%, the top 1%, the top 0.1%, the top 0.01%, and the top 0.001% are growing and becoming wealthy at a rate which is unimaginable, whereas the bottom 50% continues to remain poor. We are not an inclusive society, and let us remember that. Let us remember that in the day we remember Sri Veerendra Kumar. We have to struggle and fight for an inclusive society. We have to struggle and fight for inclusive growth. And that inclusive growth can only come if more and more people, more and more leaders, more and more political parties embrace that inclusive growth is the ultimate goal of a democratic society. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to remember my dear and distinguished colleague, Sri Veerendra Kumar. Thank you.